Hello, friends. Nicholas here with DIVO TED Talks, Devoted Talks, where we take ancient, wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience to help end suffering for you and those you love in your life and the greater world. Oh, so I'm recording this, on March 3rd, Tuesday. This morning during my yoga class, we had an eclipse and the full moon. And this one I was just extra sensitive to. So I was born in December on just after a full moon or during a full moon really, and then just after a lunar eclipse. And this had me all spun out. Like I woke up at 2:45 in the AM. I didn't have to wake up until 4, but every other day the last 5 days I woke up at 7 a.m. Just on principle, I sleep longer this time of year as we shift into the time change. But yeah, it's just weird. Everything's just all kind of wonky. And then my yoga class that I taught was weird. And, so I got to researching right before class and then right before I recorded this video. And we're currently at the South Node. We're at K2, which is, the latter part or the bottom part of the demon, the part of the demon that was cut off just after it had the Amrita, the elixir of life, of immortality, touch its lips was decapitated, and now it circles around the planets and as a shadow entity interacts with the world during the eclipse season. And so it's very interesting. I generally asked AI to tell me what it stands for and what I might be feeling under it, and it really did describe what I am feeling completely. It's this isolation, this like listlessness, this um loneliness, this just being unresourced and unconnected or disconnected. And it's been very interesting to see that actually play out as prescribed, and also to be so sensitive to it with the similarities to my birth chart. And so I I'm always intrigued when it lands and it explains what I'm feeling without me having to use it to explain in the first place, if that makes sense. I didn't read it and then feel something. I felt something and then I confirmed it. Much like we do with darshana in Ayurveda. We observe and we actually come up with our conclusions and then uh either confirm them and support them with tests. We don't use tests to make the diagnosis. We diagnose based on our assessments, and then we use potential imaging or things of that nature to confirm what we already know. So it's definitely cool to see that happen, but also like, woo, I mean, in Ayurveda and yoga, and according to my teacher, it is best to be inside and meditating when these eclipses happen because of their influences. I was listening to some talks on them, and not only are they an influence, they are the extremes. They are the poles, right? Nobody lives on the poles of our planet, and these two, the northern and southern node, that circles and orbits with the moon and the sun, um, they occlude things in the extreme nature. And so uh I have Rahu in my chart, so this may also be why excuse me, I'm more deeply impacted by this and more feeling it more, is because it's kind of this opposite energy to what I am imbued with in my chart. And if you've never had your Jyotish done, you really should do it. I have downloaded the courses and stuff to study it. I just haven't done anything with it. Running a studio, making podcasts, that kind of stuff. um, so I highly encourage you to do that. It's really fascinating. It's like, right, why reinvent the wheel when people had spent centuries, if not millennia, figuring this stuff out, and then they codified it and then they passed it on. Luckily, it was preserved in spite of the British occupation of India. But, it's definitely something of the ages, right? It can be more modernized without losing its tenets, right? Like Ayurveda isn't exclusive, it's inclusive. Right, it's not meant to get rid of things. Like it is meant to include all the helpful things, the things that make it better. and to weed out the things that are, diminutive or detractive from well-being and life in general. And so, I really was feeling all these things and I was trying to attribute it to something. I was trying to use my mind to identify what was causing this feeling and these things happening in me. And really, like, it was clinging on to very specific things, but I had to talk myself out of that because I was like, no, that's just an interpretation. Right. And not that I'm just speaking it away by identifying it with celestial movements, but what if most of our feelings and moods, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, are actually these celestial movings, and we put it on circumstances in our life, but those circumstances really are just more mechanistic based on the constellations shifting and moving and influencing us and then causing us to act in certain ways based on that. Right. So like when you start to feel certain ways, usually in relation to thoughts, but sometimes not, right? Sometimes there can be physiological changes within you that are caused by external environment, and you then try to use your mind to characterize it. And so then you're creating this story that then causes more feelings, sometimes in a feedback loop, and it becomes this vicious cycle when it doesn't have to be. And I'm not trying to say that sometimes, it is just circumstances. I believe there are reasons and impetus between and behind everything. But in this case, instead of explaining it away, what if this was what was happening and then our life plays out correlatively? And when we are being so influenced, instead of meditating and getting centered so our life isn't as deeply impacted or influenced, we're out there, like bulls in china shops, bouncing around and swinging around, or casting stones in glass houses, right? To have lots of idioms and metaphors. But what do we do with this? Well, we each have unique star charts. And so, uniquely, day to day is going to feel and be experienced differently to us. Certain influences are going to be had by some people today in opposition to others. Some people are probably having the best, most clear day possible, where some of us are having the most confused and challenging day possible. And then there's a spectrum of people in between. And so, if you can understand that this too shall pass, not because you need to get through it, but because it's just like a weather pattern. It's just a star pattern. It's just an energetic pattern that is harmonizing with your field and you, and uh, it will get into a place of equilibrium within and without you. And so, if you woke up feeling all sorts of way, I'm not sure when this will land. Probably 3 weeks from now. Um, that might be it, right? Yeah, this will land 3 weeks from now. So if you can think back 3 weeks, what were you feeling? What were you experiencing? Did you have a day where you're like, man, something is just off, something is just challenging? And if so, maybe this was why, right? I highly, highly, highly encourage you to go to a practitioner for Ayurveda. And if they dabble in Jyotish, cool. But I would say go to a Jyotisha and see them, right? They really specialize it and they're pretty good at it. Just because they know Ayurveda doesn't mean they know Jyotish and vice versa, right? Jyotish is fascinating. And in fact, in some parts of India, they took it to an extreme where they were basing having children and based on the karma that they would have based on the star charts. And so they were trying to pair kids together so that they had a certain outcome or a certain life or certain achievements for the family. Like, right? It's a little intense. Um, Maybe it worked for them. I mean, I don't know. I can't say. But it really bottlenecked in that type of harvesting it or capitalizing on it for certain ends or means. And it's each person's life, and you can choose to use it how you want to. I'm not going to sit and say one is evil and one is good and one is bad and one is one thing or another. I'm just going to say that it can be utilized in a lot of different ways. And I was fascinated with my teacher, who had never met me before, who looked at my star chart, who looked at my Jyotish printout, And it is a different discipline, and they do have different names. They do have a lot of the same archetypes, some similar, some different. Um, Definitely the same planets, obvi, but their constellations offer different insights and different actual signs for each person. So, like, I'm a Sagittarius in um, uh, traditional, Western astrology, while Tula, which is like the balance, which I think is Libra. No, not Libra. I don't know. See, I don't even know. I don't know. Which whatever the one is, the weights, that particular sign, I'm that in um Jyotish. And so it gets very interesting, and they're more focused on your moon versus your sun and Jyotish as well. So, um, yeah, I think it's worth your while, and you might be amazed at what people can tell you about your life. Like, it was destined in my stars that my parents would be what they are to each other. Like, it's fascinating because I was born under the Sagittarius sun, but the Gemini moon, actually, Cancer moon. But the actual eclipse that happened before I was a Cancer moon was Gemini versus Sagittarius, and my parents are Sagittarius versus Gemini. So it was just very interesting. Like, he knew that there was conflict between my parents without having to know my parents or have heard my story at all. He just knew. The other thing he said in mine, and I'll leave it at that, was, "Oh, you could have been a movie star." And then he looked up and he said, but you didn't, but you're not, or you didn't take that path. I mean, it was very deadpan, and I was like, ouch. But I always did feel like I was supposed to be famous. Like, I always felt like I was supposed to be on TV, and it just never really happened in the way that I thought it would. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. It might have happened earlier in different situations, but it, I don't really care. Like, I used to be obsessed with making a name for myself, and now I know that I will, and I don't really care how it happens. And I want it to happen in ways that I feel good about, and ways like this through the podcast or whatever are just fine by me. And and I like organic. I don't want it feigned. I don't want to buy it. I don't want to. I want to earn it, and I want it to be natural, because then it'll stay. Kind of like fitness and wellness in general. The more natural it is, the more authentic it is to the individual, the better off they'll be, and the more likely it will be to stick. All right, my friends, be well and be free, and stay safe out there.